There is an island in the middle of the Indian Ocean that you are not allowed to visit. Not because it's dangerous, not because of venomous snakes or hostile tribes, but because the United States military doesn't want you to know what happened there. This is Diego Garcia, a tiny coral atoll sitting alone in the Indian Ocean, 1,000 miles south of India, halfway between Africa and Indonesia. And the story of what was done here is one of the most shocking, most deliberately hidden chapters in modern history. A story of a people who were erased, a government that lied, and a military base so powerful it has launched wars across the entire world. The island is part of the Chagos Archipelago, a chain of around 60 small islands in the central Indian Ocean. Lush, tropical, surrounded by clear blue water and coral reefs. For centuries, one of the most remote places on Earth. It stayed largely uninhabited until the late 1700s, when the French established a colony there, using enslaved people from Madagascar and Mozambique to work coconut plantations. When Britain took control after the Napoleonic Wars, the island became part of the British colony of Mauritius, and for nearly 200 years, a community quietly grew there. Coconut workers, their families, generation after generation. People born on the island, people who called it home. They called themselves the Chagosians. By the 1960s, around 1,000 to 2,000 people lived across the Chagos Islands. They fished, they harvested coconuts. They had their own Creole language, their own music, their own traditions. They had no idea what was coming. In the 1960s, the Cold War is in full swing, and a U.S. Navy official named Stuart Barber develops what he calls the strategic island concept. The idea: identify small, remote islands around the world and quietly acquire them for military use. The perfect base needed to be geographically central, far from threats, and critically, have as few local people as possible. Diego Garcia checked every box. In 1965, Britain separated the Chagos Archipelago from Mauritius, just before Mauritius gained independence, creating a new territory called the British Indian Ocean Territory. Mauritius had no real choice but to give it up. Then in 1966, Britain signed a secret agreement with the United States. The U.S. could use Diego Garcia as a military base. In exchange, Britain got a $14 million discount on American Polaris nuclear missiles. A people's homeland, traded for a weapons deal. But there was still the problem of the Chagosians. So the British government sent a memo to the United Nations, falsely claiming the islands had no permanent inhabitants, just contract workers who could be relocated. It was a lie. These people had lived there for generations. And then the removal began. From 1968 onward, anyone who left the island for medical treatment or a vacation was simply not allowed back. Those who stayed found their food and medical supplies cut off. Then came one of the most cruel tactics of all. The Chagosians had dogs, pets that had lived alongside families for generations. In 1971, authorities ordered the dogs to be rounded up and gassed to death using exhaust fumes from American military vehicles in front of their owners to send a message: leave. The remaining Chagosians were loaded onto cargo ships and transported to Mauritius and the Seychelles. Crammed below deck with their belongings, no explanation of where they were going or why. They arrived with nothing: no money, no housing, no support. Left in the slums of a capital city they'd never seen before. The British government, in internal memos, referred to the Chagosians as Tarzans and Man Fridays. By 1973, the last of them had been expelled. The island was empty, except for the military. So what did the U.S. build there? Naval Support Facility. Diego Garcia is today one of the most strategically important military installations on the planet. a deep-water port capable of hosting aircraft carriers, one of the longest runways in the Indian Ocean region, fuel, weapons, and pre-positioned military equipment ready for rapid deployment across 3 continents. From Diego Garcia, the U.S. military can reach the Persian Gulf, East Africa, and South Asia within hours. And it has been used, repeatedly. During the Gulf War in 1990, ships from Diego Garcia delivered an entire Marine brigade to Saudi Arabia. B-52 bombers flew over 200 missions from the island in 44 days. After September 11, 2001, Diego Garcia was the launchpad for the first bombing campaigns in Afghanistan, before the U.S. had any forward bases closer to the country. The Iraq War, strikes on Taliban targets, all launched from this remote atoll that barely anyone has ever heard of. Meanwhile, the people expelled from this island were fighting to survive and fighting to go home. In the year 2000, the British High Court ruled the original expulsion had been illegal. The Chagosians had a right to return. Then in 2004, the British government simply overruled the court, using a legal mechanism called an Order in Council, essentially a royal decree, to permanently ban the islanders from ever going back. A democracy overruling its own courts to maintain an illegal expulsion. In 2019, the International Court of Justice, the world's highest court, ruled clearly. Britain did not legally have sovereignty over the Chagos Islands. The UN General Assembly then voted 116 countries to 6, telling Britain to hand the islands back to Mauritius. The world had spoken. Britain stalled for years. Then in 2024, a deal was finally reached. The islands would be transferred to Mauritius. The military base would be leased back to the UK for 99 years. Britain would pay Mauritius around $4.5 billion over that period. But the Chagosians were furious. They were not consulted. The deal was negotiated entirely between Britain and Mauritius, and those born on Diego Garcia are still not permitted to return. Then came another twist. The Trump administration announced it opposed the deal, worried about Chinese influence over Mauritius. It also emerged that Trump had tried to use Diego Garcia as a base to strike Iran, and the UK had refused. That refusal reportedly made the whole situation even more politically explosive. And then, in 2026, something remarkable happened. A group of Chagosians sailed back to the archipelago without permission. They landed on an island called Île du Coin and began rebuilding a settlement. After more than 50 years in exile, they went home. Whether they'll be allowed to stay is still being decided in the courts. So what does Diego Garcia really represent? A U.S. Navy strategist looked at a map and decided the island was perfect because it had no permanent population. But there was a permanent population. So Britain and America conspired to make that statement true by removing the people. They erased a community, traded a homeland for a weapons discount, lied to the United Nations, killed people's dogs in front of them, and classified the whole operation for decades. The base built on their suffering has since launched wars on 3 continents. The people expelled are still waiting for justice. Diego Garcia is not just a military base. It is a monument to what powerful nations will do when they think no one is watching. And for a very long time, no one was. If this video opened your eyes to a story you'd never heard before, please like and subscribe. I've already covered Snake Island in Brazil and North Sentinel Island. Links are right here. Next video, we're going to another island with a story that will make your jaw drop. See you in the next one.